So we have to take responsibility to learn the civics ourselves. What is the administrative branch of the government, the executive branch? What is the legislative branch? What is the judiciary branch? What does each of those branches do? The one thing they all do, they have to adhere to something called the Constitution of the United States, a series of agreements on how this nation is going to run and how it gets implemented. You may think that's not real, but that's what's at work here. And you need to know how that works if you're going to affect it. Voting is only one of the ways to affect it, but it is not all of the tools you need to make the system work in your best interests. You have to start at the most local level. And you can check it yourself. Go to the next PTA meeting, your children or grandchildren, and see how many black men you see there. Go to the school board meeting and see how many black people you see there. Yet this is the place where your children are being socialized to be good citizens or bad citizens in the society and to be manipulating the politics of the society. And we leave our children in the hands of people who don't look like us, just like we leave law enforcement in the hands of people who don't look like us. We leave firefighting in the hands of people who don't look like us. We leave sanitation. We did get a good big bite out of the sanitation in most major cities, but for the most part, the leadership of it is still in the hands of people who don't look like us. If I had to have a CIA agent in my community, but let him be black. But you'd be afraid to join it because you think something strange would happen to you. If you got an African mind, you'll make something strange happen to it rather than it make something strange happen to you. I know I went, Pat, I know you're going to stop and let you do your other questions. I just wanted to get a few things out
brother,
there. You know.
Continue, Baba Small. Please continue, brother. I'll come back around in like 3 minutes.
And then I'll make a reference back to Obama, because I've criticized Obama, and some of it may not have been justified in the earlier years. But one person, one man or one woman does not run the government of the United States. And if you're a black man or a black woman, you've got even less of an opportunity to run the government of the United States if you get elected as president. Now, the impact they could have on our part can come if we make it very clear to the larger government and to the people we put in office that we have a program that we want you to address. We have an agenda that covers our economic situation, our political situation, our cultural situation that we need addressed. And we've worked it out in our community, and now we've sent our documents to you. We want you to act on our documents. On every upcoming election you have, from the local to the state, you will lose it, because we will run somebody against you and we will outvote you. But I don't think we've ever sent to anybody in the federal government on a large level a document that says this is what the black community wants. The only organization I know that have done that was the Nation of Islam and the Black Panther Party. I don't know, maybe the Communist Party in the 1920s. The only major effort on that part was the Nation of Islam when they sent their program for the government of the United States to consider. And so we are not even involved in politics except to criticize the people in politics. Now, that don't mean we don't use the vote. Let me not put down the black vote. If you study the trend of the black vote from the 1959 to present, it has only dipped 3 times in any major way. We have always been voting from the time we got the franchise in an upward spiral. It has been a lie, people saying black people don't vote, because if we didn't vote, you'd never got Bill Clinton, you'd never got Jimmy Carter, you would never got the guy who's president now. You would never have gotten Barack Obama twice, and so many others, because black people vote in a larger number than they even want you to know. But we can vote even in a larger number than that, because we have the strength. Do the census in this country, right? Go look at the census. They've been telling us since they've been doing the census, We have never been able to take a full census of the black community, but yet they tell us what our numbers are, right? And we buy that. But if you do the breakdown, they'll tell you what your numbers are. The largest ethnic group in this country is Germans. But we never think of it like that. We just say white people, right? But all white people ain't the same. The elite that's backing Trump are Germans. They're the largest ethnic group in the country. The second largest ethnic group in the country is African Americans. We're the second largest group. And then the what so-called Latino X, if they include the African Latino. If we were to absorb the African Latino, we would be the largest ethnic group in the country. In fact, we are, except because somebody speaks a different language than English, they're taking out of our ethnic and racial grouping. But if you understand what's going on, you'll understand that white folks in power understand that blacks are the majority of this country already. We're not going to become the majority. We're the majority now, but they tell the ones that speak French, oh, you're not really with the black Americans. They tell the ones that speak Spanish, oh, you're not really with the black Americans. They tell the ones that come from Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Kenya, oh, you're not really with the black Americans. And so millions of us are confused on how to identify ourselves. But the Italians don't have to, when they come from Italy, they're not confused about which church they go to. They're not confused about what community to live in. They're not confused about what population to identify with. So now I'm going to come back to Deshaun. I done laid it out how you can find your questions, right?
No, listen now. No,
but I just wanted to say certain things because we have to understand, I use a term, history erases the mystery. If we study our history, a lot of the things we do or don't do, we will stop them. You know? When I was a young person, because many people don't know me, they know me, Professor Small. But how many of you know that when Malcolm was assassinated, that I took over the mosque after his death at age 21? I'm Al-Hajj Amin Shahid. I went to Mecca before most others following Malcolm. Then I realized that was the Arabs' religion. It was not ours. And I also realized that even Malcolm, at the end, realized the reason he said put it in your pocket, he realized that ain't ours. That's not ours. The closest Islamic practice to African authenticity was the Nation of Islam. I'm not saying that to appease you, Brother Minister. I said that because I learned and studied over the years. And I found out that if you're going to teach any people, you must design the tool around that people. You can't take a tool that's designed in another culture with another value system in another historical space for another people, especially one that had been committing genocide against you for nearly 2,000 years, and then say that's going to be your redemptive or redemption tool. You must take the science that we call religion, which I like to call African sacred science, which all religions have been using, and you must adapt it to the condition of the people you're using it for. And the only person that did that well in America was the Baptist Church and the Nation of Islam. And the Nation of Islam did it best. But because Islam was viewed as such an enemy to white people, they would not give the nation the opportunity that they gave the Baptist Church. So when you study history and you erase some of this white man's mystery, you see there's a lot of analysis you have to redo in understanding what black politics in America needs to become if we're to be free. Because I'm not giving up America. We built this. I've got businesses in Africa. I've got a whole hotel in Africa. I've got land in Africa. And in 2 months, I'll have my dual citizenship in one nation and in another 4 months in a second nation. And that's all cool. But this here, the blood that flowed from the veins of my ancestors and the sweat that dripped from their head, we built this. We have a right to own it, but to own it, you've got to change it. And if you study the history of America, most of the change that has made this a humane space to be in has come from the fight of the black American, in whatever form that we've used. And then the other part of it is the ADO. You're going to ask about that ADOS and that other kind of?
Yes,
I'm gonna leave
FBA,
that
yes,
to you to
definitely.
ask
I
the
was going to get
question.
to that, yes.
But some of it is so foolish as not to be believed. If a black man or woman came on a ship 10,000 years ago from Africa, and another black man or woman came on a ship or a plane 10 days ago from Africa, what is the difference between the two people? Because some of the stuff people are saying just don't make no sense. They say, oh, we're indigenous to America. Africans are indigenous to everywhere on the planet Earth. So you finally got the 411 that we were in America. Ivan Van Sertima wrote about it 50 years ago.
But Professor, some of them are actually, and I'm glad you brought up Dr. Sertimer. Some of the members of the ADOS FBA crowd are actually trying to discount Dr. Sertimer.
I've seen
the Black Indian movement.
Yeah,
you know.
I can see the attack. Yeah. Everybody in here, y'all can see me in the light, right? Do you see my Native American blood? And I'm not making mine up. I used to clean their grave as a child, their mounds. That was part of our duties that Grandpa Andrew Small had us doing. I'm part of the Chicora Nation, which is now called part of the Greater Cherokee Nation. But we're not Cherokee, we're Chicora. And the Chicoras were an African-based people here. But the reason that a lot of the people are browned up and red up because the African and the Asian amalgamated thousands of years before any whites got here. Because we've been here, but how many people know anything about that history except some of the mythologies they're making up? We were in Australia. We were in Thailand. We were in China. We were in Europe. Why not North America? It's closer to us than many other places we went to. Every island in the Caribbean had black people on there. Or didn't you read Columbus? Columbus said he met the Ethiopians here. His brother wrote in his diary that the Ethiopians became his guides. Verrazano, right here when he came into New York, said he met Ethiopians here in New York. The word for black, they didn't use the word African back in those days, or black, or Afro. They used the word Ethiopian to describe us back then. So study a little history, it'll really erase the mystery, you know. The Asiatics and the black people form what you're now calling the Native Americans. There were still black people here. LaRon Bennett's Shaping of Black America, and the chapter on the red and the black. That's one of Dr. Bennett's books. In there, he talked about how the white man said when he came to South Carolina, to the Yamasees and the other African-based population that was there, making reference to them, says, the ones in the villages is as blacks as the one we take off the ship, let's put them all in slavery. And that's when they began to raid our villages and burn our towns and burn our cities down in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. So, Brother David Imhotep has written an extraordinary book. David passed away last year. And it's called The First Americans Were Africans. But I don't know who that should be a mystery to. The first Australians were Africans, the first Britons were Africans, the first Chinese were Africans, the first Czechoslovakians were Africans. So why is it such a mystery that in North America? And I think the mystery is being made because there are those who do not want us to identify with the continent of Africa, the most wealthy piece of real estate on the planet Earth. A continent that has given us all of what is called Western religions and Western civilization. And you've heard me years ago in my definition, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are mere fragments from the periphery of the indigenous African spiritual system. And that hasn't changed, that's all they are. And they know they're just fragments because they did not have the genetic capacity to contain the spiritual science necessary to practice our tradition. Even though I know, Baba, a lot of them have been initiated into the Yoruba tradition, Akan tradition, and they wear our symbols, there is a genetic deficiency that do not give them the capacity to comprehend the level of where spirituality mixes with cosmology and ecology to create this one thing that our ancestors is trying to explain to us that should be our practice that we haven't yet got to. I know that's kind of sailing out there, so I'm going to pull back in, but I just wanted to drop that a little bit because we are who we are. We have done what we've done. We built America. We built this economy. We built the science. We built the technology. Go and look at, take 100% of the American inventions for the last 400 years. We will make up 90% of the inventors. Without that invention, there's no technocracy in the Western world. But if you don't see it all in one, you don't really realize what's happening. You don't realize that we got a light bulb because of a black man. That same black man was with Alexander Graham Bell. Him and Bell was very good friend, Lattimore and Bell. They were very good friends. They served in the military together. And so when they came home, they remained good friends. So when Bell was trying to come up with an apparatus to help his father who was deaf, he had Louis Lattimore, who was a graphic artist, draw the apparatus. So when you open your history book and see that drawing of the first telephone, it doesn't tell you that Louis Lattimore drew that. All right? And that the technology that evolves out of that is a part of him. Or when they tell you about the light bulb, they created an illusion. Alexander Graham Bell invented the light bulb, but no, two white guys in England, having studied Kemet, came up with the concept, but they couldn't keep it burning more than a few seconds. So they sold the project to Bell. Bell couldn't do nothing with it, so he gave it to the man who was defending all of his patents, because Lattimore was a patent defender as well. And so he gives it to Lattimore, so I'm going to give the busy work to the Negro. Nobody could do anything with it. Let him fiddle with it. And Lattimore simply went to his mind and said, when people were picking cotton on the farm, we would burn the cotton seeds to keep our hands warm. And it would just glow and glow and glow. So that's where he came up with the carbon filament. And it is the carbon filament that makes the light bulb a practical tool. And that's the African mind that does that. And we can go on and on like that throughout history. And if you do that, you'll erase the mystery that is put in your mind about who you are not and the false thing about who you are. And then we can get back to, we live here in America. We got to provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for our children and our family. We got to learn how to get control of the economic, politics, and culture where we live. We got to control land, labor, and resources where we live. How do we do that? That's when we get to the politics of the day.
Well, here's the thing. We have, oh yes, by all means. Now, Professor Small, you and I have been around Brother Tariq Nasheed several times, and actually you're reiterating what I've heard you say at his rallies. I remember when we had the FBA conference, I covered the FBA conference in 2020 in Atlanta. You were there, and you said we have to work within the political system, right, et cetera, et cetera. I was with you, of course. We were together 2 years ago at his in D.C. at his reparations rally. What Tariq Nasheed and people within his circle, those who are his supporters, are saying, and of course, those who may follow Yvette Carnell, the ADOS crowd, FBA ADOS crowd, they're saying, okay, well, since the majority of us support the Democratic Party, why is the Democratic Party not adhering to us? Like, we're not getting tangibles, in other words. They seem to be very neglectful regarding reparations.
Well, that's a good question, and they're asking the right question. They're just coming up with the wrong answer. Okay. The Democratic Party, we've made the Democratic Party, right? We are now the majority in the Democratic Party, right? But the Democratic Party is ruled by the Jewish community at this point in history. because they used us and manipulated us, and we didn't see. We call them liberal allies, and we didn't see how we were being played out of pocket. I do simple stuff. What is the percentage of Jewish people